G'day and welcome to the Fox League podcast. We do it all thanks to the very good people at the TAB. James Hooper here with Darcy McDonald and Eamon Tiernan. And our special guest today, he's played for New South Wales, he's played for Australia. He is currently playing for the St George Illawarra Dragons. Aaron Woods, welcome, big fella. How you going?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me. A bit of time off, so I thought I'd kill some time coming in and have a yarn with you, for you guys and girls.
How'd you go Mad Monday? Did they end up having it or not?
Mate, we weren't allowed. We had a few beers on Saturday, and I think I spoke to you on Sunday.
Yes, that's right.
We had a little yarn. It was a little bit dusty there, but we weren't allowed on Monday. Obviously, with what happened with the barbecue the previous year, we just didn't want to stuff up. We didn't want to lose any sponsors. They're an integral part of our club, so it was a good decision on the club's behalf. But as a player's perspective, it's disappointing.
You missed out.
Yeah, we did miss out.
Righto, now, the footy on the weekend, sensational opening week of the finals. The Rabbitohs Roosters was just a game full of complete carnage. 7 sin bins, 5 HIAs. It's created a lot of debate, Woodsy, about whether this game was a good game or not. How did you see that elimination final?
I loved it, Hoops. Look, honestly, I've listened to a lot of the commentary around the game. The ref lost control, yep. Players lost control, yep. I agree with everything. It's not going to be a perfect world where we're going to say, all right, it was just the ref's fault. It was just the player's fault. It was everyone's fault. I also reckon it was the fans' fault because they were that loud and that passionate they got into it. And it makes your blood pump and the players were that excited. So when they did cross that white line, you never see Victor Radley flying and push and shove. He normally does his actions with his shoulders and with big tackles, or sometimes you see Hargraves lose the plot a little bit. And, I've played with Junior Totola at the Tigers. He's a Tigers boy, and I've never seen him push anyone after he's made a tackle. So I think they just got so invested in in the atmosphere that was out there, and it just flicked the switch the wrong way. But, as a rugby league purist that loves the game, I thought it was a great look. I seen Buzz Rothfield was disappointed. He said there wasn't as much skill. Look, I loved the game on Saturday night in the Sharks and Cowboys, but I loved the Roosters game for a different reason. The bash and barge, the physicality, it was unbelievable. And, I think you said it maybe on 360 that it was the highest rating game.
4th highest rating game of all time in the history of Fox League.
Unbelievable.
So the numbers tell the story.
Exactly right. So I don't know why we're having I can understand that, there's 7 sin bins. It's not what we want, but it's just what happened on the day. We're always not going to get the right, conclusion to a game that we want, but I thought it was outstanding.
Yeah, do you see it, Darcy? We haven't seen a game like that previously.
I agree. I thought it was chaotic, and that's what I love. I'm so used to watching, we watch how many games every weekend, and 7 sin bins, that is wild. It was like a car crash. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I don't watch footy always for skill. I want to see the passion. That's what I like most as a fan. So watching a bit of push and shove and players kind of losing their temper, I found that exciting. I don't have Yeah, I guess there was a little bit less skill and elocution in the footy, but Cody Walker set up 4 tries. There were great moments. So I enjoyed it.
Well, when a game of footy actually broke out, I found it hugely entertaining, but there was a lot of other carnage and chaos going on around it.
There was so much going on, and Darcy and I were in the studio here covering the game, and the first story I wrote was 3 sin bins in the first 20 minutes. Then it went to 4, then it went to 5. By the time I'd finished the story, it was 7. But I got lots of different mates from lots of different sports, and I always gauge a rugby league game is if my phone blows up. And my phone on Sunday afternoon, message after message, all these different people that don't watch rugby league saying, what is going on? I can't take my eyes off it. Yeah, and when that happens,
what about how long the game went for, but?
Yeah.
Oh, well, the 6 o'clock news was meant to kick off as usual, and then all of a sudden, I think it took until 6:20
Ridiculous.
To get underway. So, look, one of the other big issues that came out of that game, Woodsy, was players lying down, and Roosters coach Trent Robinson was really strong about the fact he doesn't believe any of his players do it. He actually got his back up a little bit and took a little bit of umbrage at the question. Where do you sit on this one? Because it did look like in that game, certainly there were stages where Latrell was waiting for the bunker to intervene and playing for the penalty.
Yeah, I think there was one with Latrell and one with Kemmer Murray on Hargraves. I think Hargraves rubbed his face in the ground. It was a little bit of high contact, and it was the one where he was standing over like a tiger, or was it a lion snooking their prey or whatever it was. But look, honestly, you look at the Roosters. I've played against them. They're a physicality side. They're all right, nice and direct type of team. They don't stay down. And it sort of showed with Matt Lodge when Tom Burgess took his head off. He got up straight away and tried to play the ball for a quick play of the ball, but he got a penalty, Tommy got 10 the bin. And like you said, I think he would have took a bit of, he would have been pretty angry about it like he did in his press conference, Trent Robinson. The Roosters, they never lay down. But, yeah, it was disappointing. You see sometimes, and with Latrell, what I hate is when players, they do get hit high or there's a little bit of contact up high, they stay down, and then it's not until at least the defender or the person that's probably just nicked them a little bit high that gives it to them, and then they start to get up, or they can hear that the ref's blown time off and there's a penalty, and then they're playing on again, 6 again straight away. For me, if you lay down straight off HIA, 15 or 20 minutes, so you're off the field, and that's what should happen straight away. Anytime that someone tries to lay down that we're thinking they're trying to milk something, just take them off, and then it'll stop players from doing it.
So you reckon there is definitely an element of gamesmanship going on?
100%. Players always do it. Especially, I'm a massive Cameron Murray fan, love him to death, but you're telling me that he didn't stay down trying to get that penalty on the bottom of the post, knowing that there'd been so many sin bins already in that game so far, and that was Jared Hargraves that, he's a main offender. If a ref sees him in a tackle, he's obviously going to check it and see what's happened. But then they wait, it's like 2 or 3 minutes later, it's just a play the ball. They would have been disappointed.
Well, can I ask? I think Robbo's right. I think they didn't lie down, and
I agree.
They finished the game with their integrity and check, whatever you want to call it. But did it possibly cost them the game?
You could probably say that, because, like I said, with the Lodgy one, he got up straight away, play the ball, but he did get a penalty from it. Tedesco was taken out. I think Angus Crichton was taken out as well. But he's probably happy that, they got beat, but we did not do what other players do and other teams do. We stuck to what our standards are, what our culture is at the Roosters. And whether it's if you get hit up high, you get up and play the ball, you move on, and then the refs can look at it in the bunker later on and then come back and penalise it. But their integrity wouldn't be questioned because they got up every time.
Darcy, I felt like more what cost the Roosters the game was just how much they tipped over the edge of the red line. They were so emotionally invested. There was that much hype and that much build-up. We all know the history of this rivalry that dates back to 1908. And they're two alpha blokes who like to get in and really assert their authority on the contest in Jared and Victor at stages probably push the parameters a little bit far.
Yeah, and Trent Robinson and Luke Keary basically conceded that in their post-game presser. They said, we needed to have our emotions, but then be able to take a step back and say, this is the situation that we're in and we need to execute now. And they didn't do that, where Souths did. And it's funny because the narrative has been for so long that it's Latrell and Cody Walker that have to get their emotions in check. And they were sweet. They did it. And that's essentially what led Souths to that big win, where with the Roosters, Victor Radley and Jared, like their passion is so valuable to the Roosters. But in a game like that, where it's do or die, you can't afford to edge over that line, because like we saw, they're thinking about putting shots on or, rubbing someone's face into the grass, where they need to be in the moment and being able to react to what's happening in front of them.
You know what I reckon as well, when they do get caught in that moment, there's going to be periods in the game. I just don't think they handled the footy well. I thought when those moments happen, it's a bit like Origin. There's going to be that push and shove, maybe a punch thrown here and there. It's rugby league. There's egos, everyone, there's testosterone. They want to go mad. But when it come down to playing rugby league, they didn't have the smarts on the day. South Sydney were too clever. They scored a try 11 against 13. They just played the game too smart and outsmarted them.
It was especially in that period, wasn't it, Woodsy, where the Roosters had 13, Souths only had 11. And I listened to Cooper Cronk last night, and he said, if you've got that situation, you got to try and power through the middle, count the numbers, and work to wherever there is
and keep the ball in play. What they did, Souths had the ball straight away. They gave a penalty away. You've seen Latrell go, give me the ball. He held up another about 20, 30 seconds, kick for touch. I think they got another penalty under the post. Then they end up scoring in the corner. There was 4 or 5 minutes wasted before the Roosters even had opportunity with the ball.
Yeah.
So they just played it. It was a perfect execution of how to play with 2 men down.
There was a lot of criticism about Ashley Klein's performance. I thought, given the circumstances, he handled it as well as he could have. But the other area of the game that has come under the microscope is the bunker. Yeah. Where do you sit as a current player? Where do you sit on the level of involvement that the bunker can now have in contests?
I think it's hard because, we all come out and give it to Ashley Klein, and I sort of on the day give it to him as well. But then you think back and he's only doing what the bunker's reviewed. So he's being told in his earpiece what to give the players 10, and he's got to get back to it. So I think the bunker's got probably too much say in the game at the moment. I think if Klein sees it on the field and can recognise, that's probably just a penalty worthy, then maybe just stick to that. Some of the head high shots that are getting 10 to bin, come on, it's just a joke at the moment. And yeah, there's a push and shove. Junior Totola got 10 to bin for just a little push in the back. Normally that's a penalty. And then Radley gets his second sin bin for coming flying in, which they said was third man. He was actually fourth man in because Latrell ended up grabbing, I think it was the Roosters player on the ground and grabbed Connor Watson as well. So they're not getting their calls right. But, yeah, I just think they're intervening too much at the moment.
If you could peel it back then and dictate where the bunker comes in, would it just be, say, try-scoring situations and maybe when a player is concussed and they come in for the player's safety?
I reckon if the player's concussed, stay down for a long time. But even the try-scorer ones, they're not getting correct as well. Like we commentated the game, Melbourne versus Canberra Raiders, and just there's a couple where the ones I can't agree with the bunker on is when they're both going for the ball. Sometimes they say, one day, if their eyes aren't on the ball, they're not contesting it. Sometimes you just get checked and you just look the other way, and it's hard to get 100% right every time. I know that, but there's some out there you just shake your head and go, geez, are we flicking a coin here? What are they doing? So there's got to be a happy medium. Do I know what it is? No. I thank God I don't have to make a decision. That's for Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo, but I think maybe a little bit less from them would be probably better.
Klein was on a hiding to nothing the moment the bunker said you got to put Radley in the bin for that ridiculousness. There should maybe be some scope where Klein can say back to the bunker, like, I appreciate the feedback, but I'm the one standing in the middle of this Coliseum, and if I do that, this thing's going to blow up. Maybe the ref can actually say, I take that on board, but doesn't necessarily have to implement what the bunker's saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be a solution for sure. Righto, let's shift to the Panthers, the Premiers. They put on a clinic aiming against Parramatta Eels last Friday night. They're within 80 minutes of another grand final appearance now. The form that they are in at the moment, can you see anyone stopping Penrith going back-to-back?
Well, it was a Nathan Cleary masterclass, but it was 13-8 in the 60th minute when Mitchell Moses went down. Like, the Eels were in it up to their eyeballs at that point. And had Moses played that last 20 minutes, they might have pinched it. I'm not sure. But going off that first 60, I think the competition is still open. I'm not sure who can knock them off on grand final day, but I think they can be beaten just based on how tight it was until Moses went down, Jacob Arthur comes on, Cleary sets up another 4 tries, game over.
Woodsy, you've faced him a couple of times over the last few years. Can anyone roll Penrith?
Honestly, I think from now with the Roosters and Storm out, I think it's their comp to lose. Honestly, they're that good. I watched, I see the first 60 minutes to a Mitchell, but then what I noticed was the intent from the forward pack from Penrith. Fisher Harris, Moses Leota. They didn't start Coruscant. They brought him off the bench. I thought that was a really good move. You got Kikau, Liam Martin, and I thought they defensively, I thought the first 25 minutes set them up for the game. They honestly bashed Parramatta. There was all this talk about we need to, if you watch the blueprint of how New South Wales got beat by Queensland, it was Queensland went after Nathan Cleary, went after the forwards, give him no room. And they just did not give Parramatta the opportunity to get to Cleary. He was kicking the ball under no kick pressure. And poor Wonga Blake was just, he didn't know where the ball was coming from. So to beat Penrith, I think you need to take a leaf out of Queensland's book and you just got to go after him. You just can't wait. You need to cheat as much as possible. You need to get off that line. And your line speed needs to be right up in their face because if you give blokes like Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, and like I said, kick out, they're just going to destroy you all day. So I just think you got to play dirty and you got to play up in their face against Penrith.
Darcy, I had a bit of empathy for Wonga Blake. Some of those, whether they were spiral bombs, floating kicks, torpedoes, it was a torturous night for him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gotten any sleep since because that is traumatic. But Nathan Cleary, he put to bed any concerns over rust of 5 weeks outside of the game. But I feel like we knew this because we know that Nathan is a nerd, a rugby league nerd. I should specify.
A good
rugby
nerd.
League nerd. And so there's no way he was sitting at home with his feet up playing PlayStation over these 5 weeks. He's still at training. He's not injured. So he was training at high intensity. They probably had some brutal opposed sessions. So he was always going to come in and just...
5 weeks out of the game is a long time.
Is it though?
It is. Well, the one thing that was on his side, he wasn't injured.
Yes.
But he did not miss a beat. That was Joey Johns-like performance.
But what about when he's coming back into a side they've played for so long together, right? And they're such a well-oiled machine. Do you think that's played a big part in him being able to...
They've all come through the junior system together, so they know each other's games. And then a lot of those guys didn't play the week before, so they probably had, a lot of training sessions under their belt. Didn't have to go up there not sore. They all get to train with each other. But, mate...
Woodsy, you said you got to kind of rip in and cheat as much as you can. when you're in the moment like the other night and you see Cleary not being hit after kicks and, just dominating play, do you ever take it upon yourself or think, I've got to put a hit on that bloke? Or is there just too much happening in the moment?
It's something you can prepare all week for, but if your forwards aren't going heaven and tongue with laying the line with them, it's a never-ending battle. And Cleary is so good at it. Like you said, he's a rugby league nerd. He knows where to place himself on each side of the ruck. He knows which kicker. Like, they've got a game plan, and you'll see he will play that game plan to an absolute T, and never it's just unbelievable how well they can play it. And like you said, it just frustrates the opposition. You want to get there, but then when you think you're getting Cleary, Coruscant will realise, and he'll go to Jerome Luai. So the one moment you think you've got Cleary wrapped up, bang, they just get you on the other side of the ruck. So, man, I just don't see them getting beat. They're an unbelievable team.
Yeah, well, that's why our good friends and the sponsors of this show, the TAB, have got them into $1.90 to win the premiership. So very short, less than even money there at the moment. Woodsy, another team who is in ripping form at the moment is the Green Machine, the Canberra Raiders. You must be loving watching the 1-2 front row punch combination of Joseph Tarpanay and Josh Papali'i at the moment.
Yeah, it's outstanding, and that was something we spoke about the pre-game of the Canberra Raiders and Storm. Was the one thing that's going to really hurt the Melbourne Storm was the not the natural style of footy that Canberra play. They're a side that they'll throw anything at you. They got 1,000 players that can offload. Papali'i takes that first carry of the set, skittles a couple of defenders. Tarpanay comes next. Then you got Rapana. And they've all got these real late offloads. And what they've been doing they've been playing real up tempo. Jack Whiten has been getting his hands a lot more on the ball. And there was a couple of times on the weekend, if you see Tarpanay catches the ball, you just see, Xavier Savage at the back, right behind him, Whitehead on the other side. They're all just pushing up because they know things happen around Tarpanay, whether it's he's carrying the ball, he can be nice and physical, or he can play the silky little offloads or a little tip on like he did to Whitehead on under the post. So they've got a real good balance at the moment, and they're playing some real good footy. I reckon an unsung hero for them is Zackie Wolford. At the start of the year, he wasn't even contracted to Canberra.
He was playing off the bench for Newtown Jets. Wasn't even starting hooker.
He played rugby union last year. Yeah. He couldn't get a start.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to see how far he's come, he's ended up playing 60 minutes on the weekend. And Starling only come off the bench and played, I think, about 30. So, mate, they're just a team that's working real good together as a team. Yeah,
they're definitely in form. Is that the best front row combination remaining in the finals at the moment, Tarpanay and Papali'i?
I'd like to see them go up against Fisher Harris and Moses Leota. I think those two together, it's a very handy battle. And, you throw in Jordan McLean, and I know Tamalolo's playing lock, but he plays basically as a front rower, and his performance on the weekend was outstanding. So there's some real good middles left, but I reckon Canberra and Penrith have got the two main ones.
Is Tarpanay the best prop in the game?
At the moment, I'd say, yeah. He's done it consistently this year, and, teams are going after him, but they can't stop him. And he did it against Melbourne Storm too, down in Melbourne. And they did it only about 4 or 5 weeks ago as well. The form he's been is incredible, and I think last year he was coming off the bench, wasn't he? He couldn't even get a start.
At stages, he was butting heads with Ricky.
So it just shows you when you're in a good mindset how good he can be, and I think he's off contract too. So
on that, is he worth $1 million? That was
I don't do the salary cap. I don't know what players are worth, but I'll be paying every penny for him. He's been outstanding.
I think the tap situation speaks a lot to Ricky. As you mentioned, Hoops, he was bluing with Ricky. His missus was tweeting or whatever last year. And he was frustrated. He wanted out of the club. He's taken him from that to the best prop in the game in the space of 18 months. And if the Raiders win this week, they're in a fourth prelim in 3 years. 2 months ago, Ricky got re-signed and everyone said he's a protected species.
He's absolutely justified. I was surprised when that commentary came out when Ricky did re-sign, because if you look at his record when the Raiders make the finals, he's now won 7 out of 8 week 1 games every time that the Raiders make the finals. So they always progress, right? It's something about the way Ricky coaches.
The fans only look at premierships.
But they were in a grand final 2019 and they've made a couple of prelims under his tenure as well. Yeah, well, we all remember the 6 again.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. And even passing down the short side.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, we remember that.
Ricky told him about it too.
That's why he's blacklisted down here, isn't it?
Another forward who's had a huge back half of the season and been massively influential for the Raiders is Hudson Young.
Oh, mate, yeah. I reckon he's probably almost booked himself a plane ticket for the World Cup. He's been playing that good. He's just a player that, whether it's a one-on-one strip, a loose carry, or just a try that comes out of nothing. You see his try on the weekend?
Yeah.
He just kept pushing that extra couple of steps that most players would probably say, "Oh no, ball's gone dead." He somehow just finds his place and finds himself in the right situation every time. And not every player has that knack of doing that. And it just shows he's a genuine rugby league player. He might not have all the the smarts like other players, but he just finds himself in the right situation. And a player like that, mate, he's actually come a long way. And there was a bit of talk about him around the Origin period. A lot of people question it a bit, but then this back end of the year, he's been an integral part of that side to put him on the road to the semi-finals.
We talk about the 1%ers and not stopping 3 steps short. That play where Munster got a wicked bounce, but it was only the fact that he'd been prepared to push up, not give up on the play, and on the off chance that something does happen. And ultimately, that wins Canberra the game, Darcy.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Elliot Whitehead last week, and he said 100% if he's not picked for the Kangaroos, it's a joke.
Yeah.
And he reckons he's put the form down to basically he's matured. Hudson's matured as a player, but also he's just got this crazy amount of confidence in himself to do those types of plays that other guys, he's only, early to mid-20s.
He's only young,
wouldn't have the confidence because they're afraid of what's going to happen if it doesn't come off. And he also said he's one of the hardest workers at Canberra, so really no coincidence that he's come leaps and bounds.
Darcy, talk about his maturity. 2019, he got done for eye gouging twice.
Yeah.
It rubbed him out of the grand final. That Raiders grand final they lost, I was in the losing sheds that night, and I saw him standing in the corner by himself, not talking to anyone, drinking a glass of water. So I went and interviewed him. I said, "Mate, how's this week been?" He said, "It's been horrific. I haven't slept. This week is going to drive me for the rest of my career. You're not going to see any of that grubby stuff ever again, and I'm going to go to a new level." And he's come good on his word.
Yeah, he has.
You think, probably with that grubby stuff, he probably thought it was trying to be tough and intimidating, and it just cost your side. I think Kenny said it last night on 360 or the other night. What Hargraves did was cheap shots. Normally, Kenny's a big fan of Hargraves, and he loves the collision going after it. But when you get into that cheap shot territory, that's when you start refs and the judiciary, they start to look on you. And then if you keep doing a previous rap, they're going to keep coming after you. And he's done so well. I don't know what he's done away from the field. Like you said, he had 2 eye gouges. That's pretty serious stuff. And I think it was nine matches, wasn't it?
The second one was 8 weeks. I think the first was 5. So he did 13 weeks.
So that's a lot of time on the sideline. And whatever Ricky's done with him away from footy, mate, it's been gold because he's come back and he's been enormous.
Yeah, he's flying at the moment. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up with a ticket on that plane trip over to England. Now, what about Parramatta? Their record in the finals, Woodsy, 2 wins from 9 finals appearances under Brad Arthur's watch. Are the Eels serious premiership contenders, or are we going to see another finals fade out?
It's funny because a lot of people tipped them last week to knock Penrith off.
Yep, I tipped them.
It's just one of those things. And I think the biggest question mark for them this week is if Mitchell Moses plays or doesn't play.
He'll play, won't he?
He has to play.
Should he, though? Gee, it's a bad knockout.
It was a bad knockout, yeah. Well, I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor.
If he's cleared by protocols, of course he's going to play.
Yeah,
mate, if I was a teammate, I'll make sure I was in the room when he's doing the protocol. Mate, he's the main player. He's the linchpin of that side. And the combination with Dylan Brown that they've formed since Mitch come back from a broken finger back end of the year, outstanding. But also, when you lose Mitchell, like, no disrespect to Brad Arthur, he hasn't, Jake Arthur, he hasn't got the kicking game like Mitch. Mitch single-handedly keeps him into the game. There's a couple of times on the weekend where they got bashed in a couple of their sets, but his kicks just got him out of trouble, and they really need him. And look, I don't think their season's over yet, but I think this week's going to be huge. This is a big one for them. If they can get through this, they'll get a bit of confidence from it. And I think they're on the other side of they got Canberra, then they can play.
They'll play the Cowboys.
So
yeah.
I think they'll be pretty confident going in this game.
How are you seeing the Eels, Darcy?
It's really interesting because I almost feel like they had more chances against Penrith than they do against Canberra, and I almost think they have more chances against the Cowboys than they do against Canberra. There's just something about last week that I wonder whether it rattles their confidence, and they seem like a team that needs to be up and together, and they get up for those big games. Canberra are coming off an unbelievable win over the Storm. They are galvanised. They are up for it. And I fear for the Eels. I really do. I'm tipping Canberra.
There's a Canberra ambush coming, and the only way it can be stopped is Mitchell Moses' kicking game. He forced 2 dropouts in the first 7 minutes against the Panthers. He has that thing on a string. That's the only thing that's going to stop the Raiders.
Yeah, he was enormous. You're not wrong about that. And they definitely need him out there Friday night. Now, one of your old clubs, the Cronulla Sharks, so close to being 80 minutes away from a grand final, and it turned into a rollercoaster ride against North Queensland. Were they guilty of trying to manage that last 15 minutes?
Oh, look, I don't think they were guilty of managing it. I think you look at both sides. I reckon it was a like-for-like game. They both throw the ball around a lot. They're both young coaches, so they encourage that. I just think it was just silly plays. I'm a huge fan of Jesse Ramey. He's one of my real good mates, but there was no need to. I know Val did take a bit of a dive, placemanship, like we said before.
Yep.
But you just can't do it. As soon as you go to someone's outside shoulder, it's going to be a penalty, and that one would have sewn up the game for them, And then later down the other end of the field, Val goes through from a grubber and tries to pick the ball up. Connor Tracy touches him, which you can't. And again, it was a 50-50 decision. It goes Val's way. They get someone 10 in the bin. What I liked about it from Cowboys is they didn't say we'll score a try there. They took the 2. And they say, we've still got about 5-6 minutes to win the game here. And then they score back end of the game with Tamalalo because they got a player in the bin. And they just backed themselves. I thought they sort of lost their way in extra time. They had come out of their own end. I think they did 2 or 3 errors just in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the extra time period. It looked like they were just a little bit like they hadn't prepared for extra time. And Cowboys just played smart. They just got up, ripped in their first 3 defenders, nice and tight, attacked the ball. I think they got an error out of Rudolph, error out of Finucane, and they just played the long game. Because I don't know if they were unaware that it wasn't golden point; it was just extra time.
They didn't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure because we weren't even sure about it when we were watching the game. So, and then it looked like Cowboys were playing the long game. They'll get down there, and then, like I said, what a field goal from Val Holmes. The old Sharks hero turns to villain.
45 metres. It never looked like missing. I think it was still going up as it went over the black dot. Darcy, how did you see this game? Hugely entertaining contest, vastly different to what we saw Sunday between the Roosters and the Rabbits. But the Cowboys, look, you got to tip your hat to the way they were able to secure the victory.
Yeah, well, full transparency, I haven't watched the full game because how dare my best friend celebrate her 30th in the middle of NRL finals.
It's a long 93 minutes.
Yeah. Don't worry, I was sitting in Double Bay checking the score. I watched the highlights and I saw that Val Holmes field goal, and I'm going to do a little plug. I've got a story coming with him in 2 days. I think it'll be up on our site on Thursday, and I asked him about, all about his form and everything and what he puts it down to. But I asked him about what his biggest learning was from his NFL stint.
Yep.
And he said there's no room for error. So you can't make a mistake at training, you're done, basically. There's that much talent out there. And I just think of that when he went to go do this field goal, he knew there was no room for error. He had to nail this. He had that mindset. And it just takes me back to that interview that I had with him. And as well, he mentioned all about how Todd Payten just has so much confidence in him and lets him basically, yes, he's in the centres, but he can just roam around and do what he wants. So he's playing with this aura that he just knows he can do it and back himself. And that's what I've seen.
What about the big hombre? A lot of the big hombre, Todd Payten, honestly.
Why are they calling him the big hombre?
I think when he scored a try in the grand final and Ray Warren, the big hombre. Last try.
2005, you're right, it was last try.
But
wonder if he's like Brian with a Y. He might have got one of his mates to have a couple of dollars on.
I think he might have a couple. But honestly, they were tipped to get wooden spoon by a lot of people. Seriously.
Absolutely they were. Look, at the start of the year, a lot of people had the red pen straight through.
Remember the relationship between Todd Payten
and Tamalolo. Yeah, Holmes Valentine was included in that conversation.
Black for Chad Townsend signing. Mate,
yep.
He's been incredible.
Yeah.
Mate,
honestly, we all doubted it.
Well, they lost to the Dogs round 1.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
Chad was
6'4" dogfight.
And Chad was struggling at the Sharks. He ended up going to the Warriors.
He was playing Newtown Jets when he was at the Sharks.
And then he went they released him and went to Warriors. So whatever he's done up there,
Well, I can give you a little bit of insight. Val was telling me, well, it's funny.
they're best mates too. So I reckon they would have helped each other.
Yeah. Well,
They're married to sisters,
Yes,
aren't
yeah.
they?
No,
oh, no,
Morgan.
Scott.
Sorry,
yeah.
it's Michael.
And Scott Sorensen.
And Scott Sorensen's, yeah. But at the start of the season, I interviewed Chad Townsend, and at that point, they were coming off 15th place finish, and he was talking about how the preseason was really built on defence, and when they've come so close to the last, it kind of just went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked at the quotes and thought, oh, geez. And I asked Val about them when I was interviewing him, and he said one of the things that the Cowboys coaching staff did is that everyone was treated the same at preseason. It didn't matter if you had been playing for 15 years or this was your very first preseason. Everyone was the same. Doesn't matter what pay packet you're on. They peeled it right back to the basics and you were treated exactly the same. And I tend to wonder if that's had a lot to do with their attitude.
The other thing with Chatty, he's real good with culture and leadership. It's what goes unnoticed about him. A lot of people just expect him to set up 4 tries and break the line a million times. But what Chatty does is similar, like I said about Cleary, he drives the game plan really well. He'll kick to the same corner. If Toddy said we want to attack this centre or attack this winger by kicks, he'll do that all game until he won't even get bored of it. He just loves it. He's a craft. He loves his craft, and he'll just keep doing it and banging it. And I think that's what they needed up there because they've got the players in Tommy Dearden and Drinkwater that can create a lot of footy and score a lot of points. But they just needed that. Since they lost JT, they just needed that game manager to settle them down. And blokes like Tamalalo look like he's starting to ball play now. And, I think Jordan McLean's had one of the best years since he's left Melbourne. So, mate, I reckon he's Dally M Coach of the Year, Toddy Payton. Unbelievable.
Look what he did to Tommy Dearden. He couldn't get a run at the Bronx, and they were running last. And he goes up there, and he's a hero.
Tough bloke, Tommy Dearden too. That injury the other week, and
what did he say? Snip it off.
He said, "Take it off. If I'm out for a month, then geld me, and I'll soldier on." Righto, we'll finish with your current club, the Dragons.
Yep.
Now you finished with 3 wins in a row, but there's no question it was an up and down season. Now that you've had a week to sit back and process the results, what's your read on it?
Just we weren't consistent enough, Hoops. There was games where we were in and just we couldn't put teams away. And then the other games where we did get beat, we got beat by a fair few points. And we just, in NRL, the margin for error is not much. But like we were playing against the Roosters at Gosford one day and I think we're down 12-0 and then we got up to 14-12 at half time. We ended up getting beat 52-26.
Yeah.
Like you just can't be doing that. And we let them off the hook there. Admittedly, it was just after Origin, but there's still no excuse. You got to go out, and that sort of got them on their run. Like, we could have knocked them off there. It could have caused a little bit more dramas for them. And, they lost Takiaho that game. We had a year, I reckon, lost opportunities. We're in so many games. We got beat by Penrith in round 2. We should have beat them. There's a lot of games. Canberra. But as a side, we look like we went 2 or 3 steps forward, then we'd go 1 back, and then we'd take 1 forward, then we'd go maybe 2 back. We just weren't consistent enough, and I think the good thing for us is, the back end of the year, young Talatai Amone, Junior Amone, he started to dominate the games a bit more and take a lot of pressure off Benny Hunt, and then it just created a lot more direction from us. Sides were sort of double teaming Benny because he was going so well, and we were just relying on him too much because he can come off. Benny's an exceptional player that can come up with anything, especially when you need him. You've seen that last game. He comes up at 240-20s at crucial times of the game. But we need to get the faith in Junior Amone to do a lot of that as well. And he started to realise that back end of the year. And, I think that season will be good for a lot of the players. It was a big learning curve and it was a year of missed opportunities for me.
Can you give us any insight to what changed with Benny Hunt this year? Because he's always been a quality player, but now he's, odds on to win the Daily M. What's happened?
Honestly, I'm not too sure. That was obviously my first year there. But from the moment I got there, he looked just like he was happy. He knows his game really well. He knows his strengths of his game and his weaknesses. And, he works real hard on it. And I think maybe this year was that there's a lot of young guys around him that he probably realised he had to step up a lot more. The back end of the year. Well, I think the previous year, he had a really good year other than he broke his leg and then I think he broke his wrist at the back end of the year. And
yeah, that's right.
He had an enormous Origin series as well. But I just think he played nearly every game for us and that really helped. And he's been captain of the club now. I think he's just happy with where he's at in life. He's real settled. He knows he's Dragons captain. He's got a beautiful family, and he just goes out. Every time he comes to the train, he comes with a smile on his face. He helps out the other kids, and he's just got a real good balance now.
Is it a happy camp Woodsy? Because we've heard reports over the last couple of months that, certain players are favoured by the coach and maybe there is a few little cliques.
Oh, look, honestly, when you're going good, it's no one talks about you. We lost, I think, 3 in a row. They had all this stuff about McCulloch and Hunt and, Maguire being the selectors or something with the coach and staff. Yeah, they have got a better relationship with Hook because they were coached in the 20s by him. They've known him. They've known Hook since they were about 15, 16. Yeah. So, of course, they're going to have a relationship, really good relationship. I've got a really good relationship with other coaches like Todd Payton that I've been with. And there's no lie to that. But it is a really good camp. Every time we go to training, you get in the sheds. It's hilarious. And we'd come in some days and be like, "Oh, Moose, you picking the team this week?" Like that's what we said in the media. And there's no covering up. Like we all have a good laugh about it. And our biggest thing was we just couldn't get those wins to shut everyone up at the time. We had lost 3 in a row, so everyone's going to come out and try to get after you. So for us, we just need to start the season well and shut everyone up.
Yeah, well, on that note, you're going to need to, aren't you? You'll need a fast start because Anthony Griffin's off contract, Darcy, and we know how this rodeo rolls. Generally, when a coach is in that situation, if you don't start fast, we look at Michael Maguire and the West Tigers this year, the noise from the outside can all of a sudden just really start to become a distraction.
Yeah, 100%. And what Woodsy said, you just need a win. As soon as you lose a few in a row, the noise gets louder and louder and louder. And I want to know, does that outside noise kind of seep into the inside?
Not that it seeps in, but you're always aware of it. Like, wherever you... I didn't realise how big of a club St George Illawarra Dragons was until you play for it. I live in the St George area too, and everywhere you go, it's like, what's happening here? And why are we reading this? And it's like... I just want to go and play footy. We're trying our absolute best, but it's just not coming off the moment. Just hanging in. It's like we're seeing things, but the fans that they don't see, and we're working really hard at training, but it just wasn't working for that period. And yeah, it does seep in a little bit, but we don't get off each other. We try to help each other and get better, and that's probably. The frustrating thing was that it comes out in the media that we're all hating on each other. We're not talking to each other. That's so far from the truth. We get along with each other. It's just that we're not winning games, and it's just. Someone's getting fingers pointed, there's higher profile players that are getting sprayed because, they've got a different relationship with different people in the media and it's just how it works. That's rugby league and it's the roller coaster we live in.
Does Hook get any more animated behind the scenes or is he the bloke we see on camera who's...
Oh, no, he's pretty animated. If you don't do your job, you do know about it. He just tells you straight up. It's funny, you think he's taking the mickey out of you a bit, but he's just being brutally honest. And, it's sometimes we look at each other and start giggling a bit, but then he goes, mate, I'm telling you, you're my favourite player. I want you to do this. And it's like, yeah, sorry, mate, I've let you down.
So he does have favourites.
No, that actually wasn't one of those 3 too. So that hasn't got out in the media, that one. But look, honestly, he's good value. He's funny. He loves a joke. He loves a beer. I reckon he's one of his favourite parts of the week is after a game, we always sit in the sheds in a big circle and just reflect on the week that we had. Win, lose or draw, we talk about good, bad things, talk about funny things that happened throughout the week or the games. And, yeah, the boys love it. They get around it.
Righto. Well, on that note, mate, you're a good man. Thank you very much for joining us on the Fox League podcast. Darcy and Eamon, as always, appreciate your insight. We'll do it all again next week. We do it all thanks to the TAB, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having us.